Sign number one that you have too many books. It's hard to find the books you're actually reading. Check. Sign number two that you have too many books. You keep buying more books, but have no place to put them. Check. Sign number three that you have too many books. You just have a random pile of books on the floor. Check. I know the phrase too many books might be triggering, especially if you're a book lover like me. Like I can already hear you saying, no, there's no such thing as too many books. But I think we can agree that if these things are happening, your book collection is out of control. Now, you may disagree with me that it needs a declutter. But for me at my house, I have a lot of bookshelf space and I'm content with the number of bookshelves I have in my house. So that means that a few of these books need to go. And listen, I will be the last person to tell anyone to stop buying books or to not buy books. But if you're at the point where you are finding stress in your collection of books instead of joy, it probably is time for a declutter. I think the main problem with books for me is that I love them. Actually, no, that's not a problem. Loving books is not a problem. But I love them. I'm interested in so many of them, but I only have so much time or stamina to read them. So like, for example, this book right here. Not the most impressive book on my shelf. For sure, definitely one that is going to be on the chopping block, but my husband recommended it. We're both big Myers-Briggs nerds, and so this is a way that explains how different Myers-Briggs types behave in the workplace. That sounds fascinating. And the reason I'm still holding on to this book, even though I haven't read it and my husband is okay with getting rid of it, is that I would like to read it. I don't think I can just go find this book when I'm done. Now, I have a lot of books in my library that I probably could just go find. Let's take another example. Let's take this book, for example. Toxic Positivity. Now, I haven't actually finished this book, but I've started reading this book. And so this one has my bookmark. This one has like my notes as I'm reading about the things that actually stood out to me during this reading. I have another one on the shelf behind the camera that I'm not going to go get because I don't want to knock the camera over. It has my notes, the ways that I've grown, things that stood out to me at different times or stood out to me both times. And I just find both the information in the book fascinating, and then if I love a book and I've owned it for a long time, I find its identity as sort of like an artifact of my life fascinating. Just the things that I pick up on, the things that stand out to me at different times in my life. Really good books, I feel like, are companions across your lifetime. And so when I buy a book, obviously, I know that I'm not going to hit a home run with every single one in my library. And so that's why you declutter. That's why you get rid of things. But I do often buy books with the intention of keeping them when I can. But we are in the middle of a conundrum here, right? Like I just talked about how I do not have enough time even for what I would consider a small collection. I haven't counted the number of books that we have. I might do that for this video. But even what I would assume is like less than 300 books, which I don't feel like is super large for a collection of two people who read a lot. We already have more books than I really realistically have time to read in the next year, certainly in the next, 3 years or 5 years, just because I love to read. I think I read quite a bit overall, but I still only finish like 2 books a month on average. This year, where is it? See, this is the other problem. I can't find anything. Here it is. This year, I've been keeping a little reading journal of all the books that I've read. It's sort of like an analog version of Goodreads. I love Goodreads. I used to be super into it, but I don't know, I'm less attached to my phone and my electronic devices now, and I think that that's a good thing overall. And so Goodreads was sadly one of the things that I lost in my social media purge. But anyway, I started this, and I've read 30 books so far this year. But not all of those are from my personal library. Some of them are from the library. A lot of them are audiobooks. And so as far as like print books per month, it's like 1 or 2 that I'm finishing. And so all of that leads me to where we are today. A declutter for my bookshelves, because we are out of space. The container here is this shelf, and the bookshelf in our bedroom. Those are the 3 bookshelves that we have, and that I feel like is enough for 2 people who already have way more books than they can read. But I know that we're going to buy more. That is a separate hobby that is unrelated to actually reading books. So yeah, we got to figure some things out. And I was noticing as I was filming like kind of the before on these shelves that I've definitely tried to like style a lot of these shelves. You can see this little postcard I have here that's just kind of laying there. You can see like the candle maker, not the candle maker, like a little candle right here. This is actually a memento from our wedding, so that's cute. You can see like the little Lego sets and things on the shelves. And honestly, I'm not going to get rid of the decorative elements, but I think that in order for me to know exactly how much room I have for books, I probably need to set those aside for a minute and just load my bookshelves up and see what's left. Because obviously I want some breathing space. I want some room to stylize the shelves. But if my main goal, and I think it is at this point, is to just have space off of the floor, off of these benches for books, and to have like the books that I'm reading and my journaling supplies down here, but not like just a ton of books that there isn't any other place for. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to start with. See if it works. I feel like the last video that I did where I was decluttering books / a bookshelf was very heavy on like the how-tos, and I think that's good. I think I'll probably follow a similar process, although I feel like I remember that just being so labor intensive because I put everything on the floor. So I don't know if I want to do that. I might just have to work on it shelf by shelf so that it's a little less overwhelming. And I would also like, I think, these shelves in particular to look really nice when I'm done, because we do look at these quite a lot. We sit here quite a lot, and I don't want them to just be crammed full. I want them to be like a relaxing space, but I also want it to be like super convenient to find the books that we want and need. So seems like a tall order, at least at this point, but we're going to try it. Okay, first things first, the data. I severely underestimated the size of our book collection. When I was recording the first part of this video, I thought our collection was less than 300 books, which I don't feel like is super large for a collection of 2 people who read a lot.
Less than 300 books?
But no. I counted for this video and we had 407 books. That does not include journals, magazines, board games, anything on our bookshelf that is not like a readable paper book. That's a lot more than I realized we had, but it also makes sense why our shelves were overflowing and there wasn't space for everything. So it's time to get to work. The first thing that I did was I took all of the decorations off of the shelves. And this made it possible for me to put all of the books away. It was very helpful to be able to visualize how much space I actually had for books, and it motivated me to get rid of things a little bit more. Okay, so as you can see, we have a very cute dog here, but also we have gotten the books off of the floor, which was a main priority. I took a bunch of the stuff that was like on the bookshelves off, like a ton of pens and and bookmarks and things. And I guess this thing is still here, but I think that's okay for now because I'll take it off when it's time to declutter. But like right now, that shelf was full. But we've got just bookshelves here. I tried to stay a little bit organized in terms of color because I do think I want to keep the colorful shelves. But here we are. I still have tons of mess on the reading nook and right here. Just a lot of extra books that we are not all reading, but there is no place for them. So we're gonna head in to the other bookshelf and see if there's any kind of magic we can work in there. So as you can see with the shelf, most of the spines are turned out like this, and that is just for aesthetic purposes. In the bedroom, I feel like I don't like my brain to be assaulted by all the things I'm not reading. Out there, it's totally fine to have some options. Like I've definitely color-coded things in the past and made them super pretty. And I think that I will continue to do that out there. But in here, first of all, the shelf just isn't as interesting because I've taken a lot of the colorful books for out there. But second of all, it's just nice when we come in here at the end of the day to not have to worry about like, oh, like, let me look and read all the titles to all these books that we own. Like we know for the most part what books are on this shelf. And I know that this seems like a lot of books to keep track of, but we do. I can look at the shelf and tell you that this is my husband's John Maxwell collection. I know the spines. I think this is a Patrick Lencioni book. Let me check. Nope, it's not. It's Ryan Leake. Okay, well, still business leadership. This is the 4-Hour Workweek or whatever that is. Yep. This is a book called The Deeply Formed Life. And so there's a lot of ones where I'm like, okay, I know what those books are. We have them sorted by topic and author last name. And so they are fairly sorted. If I know that I'm looking for like, a leadership book and the author's name is after M, I know to look after John Maxwell. So it is actually really easy to find. I find that people who come over and visit don't like it very much because they want to look at our shelves, which is kind of a bummer for them because I also like looking at people's shelves when I go over to their house. I'm very nosy. But I really like the way that this looks, the way that this works out. And so we will be keeping it, but I do need to make sure that I know exactly how much space I'm working with. And I do feel like this shelf has gotten, it's pretty full, honestly. Like we do have some decorative elements like in the other place, but like, for example, this one is not taking up any book space. It is just sitting in front of the books. These things can go out, that's fine. But like stuff down here on the bottom, I just sort of set things there and not known what to do with them. This is cute. I really like this. I'll definitely incorporate it back in the end, but I just need to see how much space we have for books. I won't bore you with more details on finding space for the books, but I think you get the picture. This was a process, and I hadn't even started decluttering, but I felt like it was very important to, first of all, know what I was working with, and second of all, actually have a place for all the books that I was going to keep and not just have them piled up everywhere because I wanted to avoid the mess that I've had in previous declutter. Okay, so now that we have pretty much all the books where they're supposed to be, I can see how much room I actually have to work with. I have a tiny gap up at the top of this shelf. The shelves in the living room are full. I have a couple of tiny gaps down here. But for the most part, we are at max capacity. This is just, that's not going to do because we like buying books. And I've said this before, I will say it again. I'm not opposed to buying books. That's great. I just want to make sure that the books that we have in our library are the ones that are currently the best books for us personally to own. There are some books that are good for other people to own, and that are not as good for us to own because we are not going to read them, we are not going to use them, we are not going to get the enjoyment out of them that someone else might. And that is fine. We need our personal library to be tailored to our specific tastes. Yeah, we're gonna do the decluttering so that we have enough room to keep everything organized and together. That's been a little bit of a struggle recently. I want everything to look a little bit pretty. In terms of like, I want it to be easy to navigate this shelf, but still have the bindings out the way that we like. We are minimalists in so many areas of our lives, and I do want to keep the number of books we own down. But we enjoy reading books. We enjoy perusing bookstores, especially used bookstores. We enjoy buying books, and we enjoy having books in our home. So, I'm not trying to get rid of all the books, but I do want to get rid of the ones that I don't think we're needing anymore. I don't think we're reading, and I don't think we need them. So I started with the 2 bookshelves in my living room. I sort of just did them together. I pulled all the books off that I was unsure about keeping. So that included books that I was pretty sure I wanted to get rid of, books I was on the fence about, books I wanted to ask my husband about. And then because this is a shared collection, I talked with my husband about what books I was thinking about getting rid of. And I mostly did this because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't decluttering anything that he wanted to keep. And there was at least one book that I thought maybe we could declutter that he still wanted to read. So it was good that I checked. But honestly, there were a lot of other benefits just to talking to him and like walking him through my decision process that gave me a lot more clarity as well. So first, as we were talking, I started to sort the books into piles. Our declutter pile, which were the books that we are getting rid of, we were both comfortable with that. There was one book that I set aside because I wanted to record my notes from it and then declutter it. And then we put together another small pile of books that I was going to give myself a week to see if I read them. In theory, we could have done this with books that my husband was going to read too, but he really was a lot more decisive about the books in the pile and what he felt about them. So I think we ended up maybe putting one there for him, but the rest were for me to just kind of peruse and look over and see if they piqued my interest in the week before they got added to the chopping block. Another advantage of pulling my hubby into the process is that he helped me select a few more books to declutter from these shelves because I said, hey, you know, there were some books that I didn't touch because I thought that you wanted to read them. And so he did pull a couple off that I thought he was reading or interested in finishing that he said he was done with and ready to declutter. But he also asked me a few clarifying questions about books that maybe I had overlooked or thought that I did want to keep just as a matter of course. And then I realized I was able to pull off a couple of extra ones too. And talking through these decisions with each of these books helped me feel less discouraged about the progress I was making on this declutter so far.
I know it's not a ton, but
every little bit helps.
there was a few.
Yeah. And we have the whole other shelf in there. I know we don't always have the option to involve someone else in our decluttering. And I know that even if you have like that available, it really depends on who that person is and their relationship with stuff, as far as how helpful they can be in something like this. But just having someone to talk through these decisions with really helped me feel less overwhelmed by the process. This is just sort of a random thought, but a lot of times when I'm doing projects like this, I can't help but think about how fortunate I am to be able to own this many books. Like at different times in history, honestly, until very, very recently, owning this many books would have been a sign of enormous wealth. And I just feel really grateful that I live in a time when, you know, books are affordable. Books are something that I can own as a person because, you know, I'm not somebody that can just afford to buy the very best of everything, but I can go to a used bookstore and I can usually get a lot of really great information that just excites me and stimulates my mind and makes me use my imagination. And for that, I'm truly, truly grateful that we live in a time where that's possible. This shelf took much longer than the first one. I was decluttering more books. I had more books to go through to begin with, but it didn't feel like an extravagantly long time because I just basically followed the system I'd already used and liked with the smaller shelf, which I feel like is kind of a hack. If you have something to declutter and that type of thing is spread throughout multiple areas of your house, do the smallest one first, figure out a system that you like, that works for you, and then you are better equipped to handle the bigger projects. But anyway, this was the process I was using. 1, I pulled off any books I wasn't sure about. I left the ones that I was sure that I wanted to keep on the shelf to save cleanup time. 2, I sorted them into declutter and unsure and take notes from piles. I then went back through the books I was unsure about and sorted them into keep, declutter, ask my husband, or put on the book buffet. And then I, of course, also went through all of the books that I was wanting to get rid of or, put on the book buffet with my husband to make sure that I wasn't trying to get rid of anything he wanted to read. And just like that, the decluttering part of this project was done. But I still had to organize these books into something a little more cohesive than I'd had before. And to be 100% honest with you, these shelves sat like this in their decluttered but not organized state for a few weeks. I was still having a very tough time emotionally, and things felt like they just kept coming up in life. And so I was like, I do not have time or energy or really even like the desire to organize these shelves. But eventually things got a little bit lighter in life. My emotional clouds broke apart a little bit and enough sun came through that my motivation returned. And I was able to finally finish this project. I think the reason I was dreading reorganizing my stuff was because I knew that it would require taking all these books off of these shelves in my living room. So what you see me doing here is sorting these books by color because I really like how all the books look on our shelves when they're sorted by color. And honestly, it means that I can keep the other styling on these shelves to a minimum because the books themselves are like the focal point. They're the decoration, which makes my minimalist heart happy. I know this isn't really a minimalist looking vibes bookshelf, but in terms of functional minimalism, like these books have a purpose because they are books that I want to own, I want to use, I want to read. And at the same time, they are serving as the decorations that are making my home more cozy and inviting, which just is 100% my vibe. Sign me up, I'm in. And since I already had a red shelf and a yellow shelf in this cupboard, it was pretty easy to sort them. I also added an orange section to the yellow shelf, so I pulled any oranges I could find out of like the yellow shelf and the red section, and then like the miscellaneous sections that I had sprinkled throughout so that I could do a little bit more of a rainbow effect. But it's not just about color coordination. Obviously, that adds a certain level of prettiness and excitement to it for me, but it also needs to work as a bookshelf. So I wanted to make sure that the books were either 1, books we loved and wanted easy access to for reference, loaning out to other people, rereading, etc. There are books that we refer to again and again, or we recommend again and again. And so having them out and visible and easy to locate is really helpful. Or number 2, books that we wanted to read soonish. So either books that I knew were, a sort of high priority for me to read, or books that my husband had mentioned wanting to read to me. We tend to keep the books that we're most excited about out here, which means that not all the books that we have on these shelves are color-coded. And I needed a place for those books too. But I still wanted it to look a little aesthetic. I feel like I was failing on that before because I just had 2 color-coded shelves in this cabinet, 2 color-coded shelves in the other cabinet, and then I had 2, what I am going to lovingly refer to as chaos shelves in those cabinets. So like 1 in each. And so I wanted to eliminate the chaos shelves and make it more orderly and cohesive and aesthetic. And so what I did, and I'm not sure if you can see it well with this particular shot, so I can insert something else if I need to, but I put all the books with white spines on the top shelf of this cupboard, and I loosely tried to organize them by other colors on their spines. So like white and black first, then white with black and maybe a little red, then orange, etc. This left space for some books that we're currently reading or want to read soon, or, that are really good and we recommend a lot, but they don't fit the general color scheme. Before this decluttering and reorganization, I had tried sprinkling in the white and black and other colored books into the colorful shelves, but I felt like that really diluted the entire experience of having things color-coded. So having a separate shelf and space for them really made the colorful shelves better and more cohesive, but gave me the flexibility about what books we can have out here. So it made them easy to reach and remember during our reading time, and I didn't have to worry about, oh no, they don't fit with my color scheme. So then I had to do the other glass-fronted cabinet, and this was originally just like 2 shelves of blue books and a chaos shelf, and I had like stuff all mixed together, like different shades of blue. But I wanted to add green and purple this time around to make it like more of a rainbow. So I spent some time sorting the books into various shades of blue. Teals, which I put next to the greens, then like light blue, bright blue, medium to dark blue, and navy, which I put next to purple. I don't really feel like I have any indigo books, but maybe I just don't have a very good concept of what indigo looks like. Then I put all like my neutrals and metallics. So the grays, the silver, the bronze, the gold spines, as well as books with black spines on the bottom shelf. And this left me with enough space to add our wedding photo books back to the shelf, along with the cute little candle holder, which made me happy. I like having my wedding books displayed this way instead of sitting on a shelf where they're a non-standard size and would probably stick off the end and look a little messy. This way, they look really nice and they're easy to access, very fun to look at, and give me like little happy butterflies every time I see them. But the job wasn't done in here yet. I still had to clear off the little tables underneath these bookcases. I've claimed one and my husband has claimed the other, so I started with mine because it's always easier for me to deal with my own stuff. This shelf ideally is where I keep my journaling supplies, but that's been a little bit problematic recently because they are overflowing and spilling out onto the bench itself. Like I just have way too many journals. So I sorted them into a keep pile because I'm actively using them, a throwaway because I'm not using them and probably never will. And then for the ones that I'm not actively using, but I wasn't quite ready to say I would never use them again, I, honest moment here, put some in a like storage pile. So these are journals I'm not actively using, but I'm not ready to part with yet. And so I took them to the place where I store my completed journals. And I figure that as I complete these ones that I am actively using, I can decide then, okay, am I going to reintegrate these into my journaling, like to replace the ones that I used up, or am I ready to part with them? Is it time for them to go? I also took the time to find a new spot for the bookmarks that we have laying around, which we use bookmarks all the time, but they'd previously been strewn about the cushions, the tables, or stacked on shelves in an effort to hide them, which didn't really work. And I also sorted through the pens in my pen holder to see what really needed to be there, what I could toss, and what could go back with my art supplies so I don't have to be searching all over the house for a specific color when I need it. So then I talked to Andrew about his little table and if there was anything that he wanted me to leave on it. And he said he wanted to keep his pens handy for like underlining and making notes and stuff, but otherwise I could do whatever I wanted. So I decided to keep the books that he's currently reading out, since that's where they seem to be naturally congregating. And that way he doesn't have to like move around the shelf looking for things by color when he wants to read. He can just sort of look at what he's already reading and pick. And then I really trimmed down a lot of the decor items that had just sort of accumulated there and left just these cute Lego succulents. With that done, I was able to move on to the bookshelf in our bedroom. Thankfully, there were no major changes in here that required me to take all the books off and reorganize, thank goodness. I just sorted the ones that had their spines facing outward, which told me that they were new to the shelf and hadn't yet been sorted in. I placed them on the appropriate shelves for their categories, and then put them alphabetically by last name in their spots. And thanks to the declutter, I do have some space left on this shelf, so I get to style it a little bit. So this is the fully complete, reorganized, redecorated bookshelf. I've got this cute little picture from our wedding with the fairy light lamp. Yeah, trying to let it focus there, but maybe it's not going to. I've got this globe here, and then, I don't know, I thought it was kind of funny to have Thanos snapping in the background. He's just about to snap. And then I've got two full shelves, that one and that one. So I only had one other gap, which was down here on the bottom. And I just decided that it looked best with nothing in it. Just like some nice space. We can put books in it, we can leave it empty, whatever. I think it looks beautiful. And then, of course, it was time to sit back in my newly decluttered, reorganized, beautified reading nook and read or take a nap. I mean, after all that work, I guess I needed a rest. But yeah, I am so pleased with how these bookshelves turned out. I'm so happy that we once again have space for books, that they're not overflowing everywhere on the floor, that they're organized. And yeah, for a book lover like me, especially as we get into the cozy days of fall where I'm going to want to be reading even more, this was time well spent. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!